Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm Nicole Begley, and today we are here for episode 48, How Looking Back Helps Us Look Forward. And I have my special guest, Heather Lahtinen, back with us today. And next week, we're going to be looking forward to 2021. So stay tuned. Stick with us. Don't skip over this episode thinking, oh my gosh, I never want to talk about 2020 again. You guys, that would be a mistake. Good things came out of 2022, and we need to look back and see what happened in 2020 to learn the lessons that we had, to see where we grew, and to help us take stock of where we are so that we can make 2021 our best year yet. So stay tuned, and we'll get started in just a minute.
Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. If you're a pet photographer ready to make more money and start living a life by your design, you've come to the right place. And now, your host, pet photographer, travel addict, chocolate martini connoisseur, Nicole Begley.
Started with our interview with Heather, I just wanted to pop in here real quick and ask you guys a really huge favor. If you have 2 minutes, would you be oh so kind to leave a review on iTunes for this podcast? Of course, that's assuming that you're loving this podcast, which I really hope you are. So if you could leave a few minutes and leave a review, I would so very much appreciate it. You can even leave questions in the reviews and we'll look over them and we can answer them in a future episode. But I wanted to start my year off with gratitude for each and every one of you. We are coming up on 1 full year of this podcast every single week right here in your ears. And I am so very thankful that you have joined me on this journey, and just wanted to say thanks. So without further ado, let's roll that interview. Hey everybody, Nicole here from Hair of the Dog, and we are back for another podcast episode with one of your favorite guests, Heather Lahtinen from the Flourish Academy, Hair of the Dog coach, Elevate coach, and just awesome person all around. I can think of no one else I want to kick off the 2021 podcast with than you. Heather, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Nicole, thank you so much for having me. I love, this idea of like a fresh start, a new year, and I consider myself somewhat of a productivity expert. I mean, I'm always learning and I'm always growing, but I love to just think and plan and create a year that's designed for me, your life by design, your year by design, creating something new, fresh, like there's no baggage. Okay. There's no difference between December 31st and January 1st. We know that, but I don't know. There's just this feeling to the new year that gets me really excited. What about you?
Oh my gosh, Heather, it's like Monday on steroids because you and I both know how excited we are. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my weekends, but there's part of me all weekend that I'm like, man, I can't wait to get back to work on Monday. And I feel so just thankful that I have a job in which like Monday morning comes and I'm like, oh yeah, bring it on. So the new year is that times 52.
Yeah, exactly. You have just a fresh start, a clean slate, and you can create it however you want. So I thought what we could do is help people create their year by design. What do you think?
Oh, I love this so much because, here's the thing. If we don't have intention about where we want to go, we're just going to get pushed around by all these other external forces. And, it blows my mind how many times I ask someone, well, what do you want? And they don't really know. And you think that would be an easy question to answer, but it's not always an easy question to answer, because we just kind of accept this is how status quo is. This is what we do. And here's another week. And just check it off the calendar. It's a new week, but I'm doing more of the same. So this is a great time for us to really take stock of where we are, where we want to go, and start to make plans to get more of what we want in our life.
Yeah. And you know what? I think people just need to ask themselves, do I want to continue to operate in a reactive mode, which is what you were describing? Most people tend to just go with the winds of change. Whatever is happening around them, they're just kind of going along with it. And, Zig Ziglar said, he's quoted as saying, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. So if you say to me, I don't know what I want, but I'm not happy, or I feel some level of discontent and I'm not even sure why. Well, if you can't define what it is that you want or where you want to go, there's no way that anyone could help you to achieve that. So obviously the first step is defining what you want your life to look like. This also goes along with one of our mentors, Jim Fortin, and his concept of working either from the outside in, which is reactive, or from the inside out, which is proactive.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. But before we start diving into where we want to go this year, there's some kind of retrospective. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Retrospective things that we need to start looking at that is not really human nature for us to really take the time to reflect on things. I know I have to really force myself to say, all right, time out. Let me look back at this for a minute, because I mean, it's human nature. We're always looking forward. We're like, next thing, next thing, next thing. But there's so many lessons to be learned by just looking back at where we've been.
Yeah, that's very true. So a lot of people, okay, there's a couple different segments of people. There are people who don't set goals. There are people who set goals, and then there are people who set goals based on what they learned in the previous year. But a lot of people skip this really, really critical step, because in the context of goal setting, it's extraordinarily useful to evaluate the previous year, including its successes, failures, lessons, themes, before attempting to create a different outcome in the year ahead. In fact, I would argue you cannot create a new or different outcome in the upcoming year unless you evaluate and reflect on the past year. Would you agree?
I 100% agree. Yeah. One of our other mentors, James Wedmore, likes to say, what got you here won't get you there. So doing more of the same. If you like where you're at, then keep on trucking. But if you have goals that are bigger, a vision that's bigger, then yeah, we need to change how we're showing up.
Right. And I can't remember exactly where I originally learned this. I got into personal growth and development about 7 years ago. So I'm going to guess this was probably from Michael Hyatt, because he has a program called Your Best Year Ever that I went through several times. And he talks about this, completing the past, that it's important to do 3 things: acknowledge what happened, learn from those experiences, and then adjust your behavior accordingly. But again, it can be really tempting to skip this step and just go into the excitement of planning for the new year. I mean, it is for me, and I would assume it would be that way for others as well. But it's pretty important to sit down and really reflect on what happened. So what I've done is I've put together a series of questions that people can think about, reflect upon, and I would recommend doing this not sitting in front of Netflix, not while scrolling on your phone, but maybe this is something I do when I want to really focus, is like I'll light a candle and I'll go to one of those Spotify playlists that's intended for studying or focus. And it's usually instrumental, and you just put it on kind of soft in the background, and you sit down and you really think about these questions. So are we ready to get started?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that is part of the key too of making this feel like a more enjoyable experience, and also getting your mindset in the right frame of mind by making a change from like not trying to answer these while you're trying to cook dinner and while you're trying to feed the dog and do all these different things, but to actually say, I'm going to take 20 minutes for myself. And, Heather, I know you like to go hide in your closet so no one will bother you. You have a beautiful window seat and big window. So I actually hide in my closet too, but I don't have a window or a window seat in there. It's so sad. We have to go hide in the closet so that, we can get some alone time. I used to be able to go to a coffee shop, but we know that that's not happening this year. But anyway, so take that time, maybe you go, and if you'd like to take a bath, like make a bath and get some candles, put on some music, and just take the time, tell your family, hey, leave me alone for 20 minutes. So you can really focus on this, because if you keep getting interrupted, you're not going to be able to get as much out of it as if you were able to focus on it for a few minutes. Also, if you want to download these questions, if you go to hairofthedogacademy.com/48, just the number 4 and 8, you can download them there. We'll have them available for you to grab. So if you're driving, keep on driving and come back to that site, hairofthedogacademy.com/48, and grab the questions so you can answer them later on.
Yeah. And listen, you make a good point about getting yourself in the right mind state to answer these questions. Don't do this if you're grumpy. Don't do this if you're irritated with your kids or your spouse, because it's just going to have you focus on the negative. You have to put yourself in a positive mindset to do this. And if that's not right now, then, schedule a time when you think you can do it. And I will say that I have taken several of these goal setting type courses over the years. And a lot of what I'm going to be sharing, I have compiled just like on my own, what works for me from people such as Michael Hyatt and James Wedmore and many of the people that also work with them. I've just put this together. So some of the questions come from their material. Some of the questions are my own. It's just a compilation, again, of what I feel will work best for us.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. So let's get started with our reflection of 2020.
Okay. The first question is, what happened both personally and professionally in the last 12 months? Okay, hang on. I know that sounds like a really big question. So I recommend creating 2 columns. And what I did to answer this is I went back and looked at my calendar, so I could see what my appointments were. And so I looked, January, February, and then when things sort of shifted in March, and I just started to write things down. And then the more I thought about it, the more things I thought of. So this isn't something you can just like hurry up and complete and get done. I really think you need to take the time to reflect. Another thing I did was I looked back at my notebooks. So I keep several notebooks where, to-do lists, et cetera, tasks. And I went through those and I started to write that. So for instance, let me give you just a few examples from my list that I know are applicable for you as well, Nicole. Professionally, we both launched the Elevate program. So that was a really big deal for us in our businesses. We have memberships that we run. We both got more help in our businesses this year so that we could do less of the administrative work and things like this. I mean, you launched your podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually did a couple of really small, what I call micro workshops for the Flourish Academy, very small. But also, so I'm listing things that I've done. But I also listed things like I had to cancel a retreat. And I know that you had to cancel, I don't know, about 85 trips. Am I right?
Yeah, that number is a pretty accurate.
So
and certainly we've already canceled now 3 times.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, times 3. So there's things that you did. Here's what I don't want people to do. I don't want you to just like immediately label things as good or bad. Right? I want what happened factually. What happened? Okay, I launched Elevate. We did these certain things. I canceled a retreat. Yes, we adapted to the pandemic and what we needed to do. Right? Okay. Like this is just a list of what happened. Don't take the time at this point to make an interpretation of what happened. Just write down what happened. So are there a few things that you can think of, Nicole, that you did?
Well, yeah, before I get to mine for a second, one that I'm thinking of that people might be tempted to put down is they might put down, I had a failed marketing strategy. Okay. Ooh. That is assigning
That's right.
a meaning to that. That's saying it failed. Well, no, maybe I did a marketing promotion that resulted in 0 new clients.
That's
okay.
It.
That's what happened.
That's right.
That labeling of failed is not going to serve you. I think we're going to talk more about like rewriting those stories and meanings as we go through this.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the lessons. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect. So we'll come back to that one a little bit for that. And this is just, again, how our mind works in human behavior is that we don't remember the successes. We tend to downplay our successes and focus on the things that didn't go as well. So you guys see this everywhere. It's, oh, thank God 2020 is over. Oh, thank God it's a new year. Everyone's just like, oh, it was terrible. No. I promise you there were some good things that happened, but it's harder for our mind to remember that without us consciously trying to pull that up and say, okay, I choose to remember some of these successes that I had in this past year so that, and one of the ways you can start to to train yourself to do that is I started using a new planner. I mean, we could have a whole podcast on planners, Heather.
Yeah, for sure.
I won't go too far into a tangent here, but I started using the 90X planner, and in there it has a place for each week that I can write down my weekly wins. And what a great way to get used to acknowledging the wins that you have as you go through the year. And then at the end of the year, I can look back through this planner and be like, oh, yeah. Oh, right. Oh, my gosh, I forgot about that.
Exactly.
So it becomes a lot easier to kind of pull this together when I'm starting to plan for 2022.
I think everybody should have, if not a planner, then some type of journal with weekly wins. Don't you? Where they write down every week, what were you winning at? Because it would force you to focus on gratitude, what's working, what's going well. And it would be a great reference point for when you do this exercise next year.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be any particular planner. I mean, grab notes on your computer, grab a text file, put it in Trello, put it in Todoist, whatever you're using, email yourself once a week and put it into a little folder in your email. Just find a place to write that down, because when we change our mind to focus on the gratitude and the good, amazing things really truly start to happen. You're literally rewiring your brain.
Yeah, that's right. And you'll find more good. You'll look for it. But if you continue to focus on what failed, quote, failed, or what's going badly, then you're going to find more of that as well, because what you seek, you find. What you focus on grows. Everybody knows that. So
Yes.
When you're creating this list, if this is the first time you're doing this might take some time and be challenging in that you have to kind of go back and remember and look. But if you listen to Nicole's advice, then you're actually, again, planning for this exercise next year by keeping track of your wins this year. I think that's a brilliant strategy.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, personally, do you have anything, or professionally, I guess, that you would like to share that you accomplished?
Well, let's see. In addition to the ones that you mentioned, one of my personal accomplishments, personal/professional, is I've been wanting to learn more about Photoshop painting for years, and it's always been on the back burner. So I finally joined my friend Michelle Parsley's Beyond the Brushes membership, and it is amazing. And I have been working on my Photoshop painting, and I just find it so relaxing, and it's just so fun. And I don't know if I'm gonna ever do anything with it professionally, but it's just something I wanted to learn. So I'm learning that, and that has been fantastic. This is also big for me too, Heather. I learned to use my Instapot during quarantine this year.
Wow. Right. That's a big deal.
It is. I bought it at Costco. It was on sale like ages ago. And I'm like, great. And then I got it home, and then I was scared to use it. So I'm like, I don't want to blow up my kitchen. So I sought some advice from a veteran Instapot user, and then started using it. And I'm now obsessed and can make mashed potatoes in 15 minutes. And it's awesome.
Right.
So yeah, those are a couple other of my wins.
That's great. Personally, I got in my best shape ever of my life. I'm in the best shape I've ever been. But that's a result of, this is a good example of where you choose to focus. Because the reason I got in the best shape ever this year, or this past year, is because I put on some quarantine weight. Okay. I know this
Who didn't? There were a lot of cookies.
Right. Yeah. It's very common. We got some takeout. We made some cookies. There was some comfort food thrown in there. So, and actually when I filled out my own worksheet for this exercise, I wrote at the top that I got chubby and then I got fit. But when I look at it overall, the story I am telling myself is the empowering one, which is I got in the best shape ever. I didn't start that off with, well, I had gained, weight. I said, no, I'm looking at the overall, what I did. I got in the best shape ever. So I'm choosing to focus on the positive. I even have if you look in the right light, I have a few muscles. Okay. There has to be the right shading. But the point is,
you need that side light, coming into the texture.
It's a technique in photography, the highlights to the shadows. And if you look in the right light, you might think, wow, she might even have some muscles. And that had never been the case for me. So I actually put that on my list. I put that I'm in the best shape ever. And I even have muscles, which, I'm just trying to be funny. On a more serious note, this is kind of funny, not funny, haha, ironic. I don't know. I actually sought out a therapist this year. I started seeing a therapist in the fall, and I'd like to think I'm pretty high functioning emotionally. But in my mind, I thought, I want to get better. I just want to be smarter, faster, better at everything. So I sought out a therapist. I did some research, and I actually told her this when she finally got in touch with me. I'm like, you guys are like photographers. You don't get back to anyone. I mean, the bar is low. I said, I emailed like 5 therapists and you're the only one that replied. So guess what? You're hired.
Wow.
And photographers are the same way. If you if you answer your phone or you reply to emails, you will by default get more clients because there are so many people in the service industry. I'm picking on photographers, but in the service industry in general that are just not getting back to people. It's really bizarre.
Which is funny because they're the same photographers that'll be complaining that they don't have enough clients. Well, answer your phone. They're calling.
Oh my gosh. Right. So I get this therapist and I get on my first call with her and I'm like, listen, her name's Holly. And I said, listen, I'm not here for any of that like family crap or like, let's look at your past and your childhood. No. I just want to perform better in my business. I love my work. She was very gracious, of course, but I'm imagining that she was probably rolling her eyes internally like, okay, Heather, we'll see where your issues are. But I chat with her every other week usually, and just like getting the clutter out of your brain and talking it through with someone who is completely neutral, but will also call you on your crap has been just life-changing for me. So I'm now on this kick, Nicole, where I'm like, everybody needs a therapist. Everybody, you can go to Psychology Today, click on find a therapist. And I did not even know this. So maybe this is news to you as well, but my insurance pays 100% of it.
That's fantastic. I didn't think that they covered. So you
have to call.
I had no idea.
Right. Call the number on the back of your insurance card and they'll tell you and they said, yes, it's 100% covered. And I thought, oh my gosh, sign everybody in the family up, right? Let's everybody get talking to someone. So anyway, here's the thing. If I reflect on that, and I'm sort of jumping ahead. In fact, let me get to this next question and tie this together, because the second part of this is based on what happened, either professionally or personally. What lessons did you experience? Because if something happens and you don't draw the lesson from it, then it was worthless, meaningless. I mean, it always has meaning, but you need to really draw from it. So, I went to find a therapist because I thought it would help me in business, but I had the time to do that because we weren't traveling as much. So that was thanks to COVID. Right. That was like, I don't know that I would have done that otherwise. So a lesson I learned there is that even things that appear to be challenging or difficult on the surface always have a gift. You just have to look for that gift. So in this case, the gift for me was the time to do it. Or I don't know, the just maybe the push. Maybe I just saw what was going on. The world was kind of a little bit messy last year. So that was an important lesson for me. I also learned in the past year, as I'm sure everyone would agree, is that we are more resilient than we thought. And that we can do hard things. We can get through things. We're actually way more flexible than we think, and we can make things work, and we take action. And so these are all good things that came out of a challenge. Can you think of any lessons that stand out for you?
Yeah, I think my biggest one, I mean, it's no secret that traveling is one of my most favorite things to do. And this year was supposed to be like the big year. I was going to Europe 3 times. I was going to the Galapagos. I mean, it was ridiculous, the amount of stuff that I had. Well, that was supposed to be this spring, but the amount of trips that I had last year, and I was home all winter before COVID happened. Like, Heather, I didn't leave my house. Right. I went to Florida at Christmas time to see my mom as usual, but January, February, March, home the entire time. And literally, as my first trip is when the world started shutting down. And then we were supposed to go to California. Yep. I was supposed to teach Barklander in Scotland. I was going to Italy for 2 weeks over the summer. I was going to teach Barcelona in the fall. Like, my entire calendar. And there were some personal trips in there thrown in there too that got canceled. Like, totally wiped clean. And 2 big lessons. Well, one really good benefit is I got a COVID pony. So I purchased Morocco. Right. And when I realized, I'm like, well, I'm not going anywhere for a while. Time to get that horse that I was going to get after all this travel this year. And then I also discovered that I actually can be quite content at home. The horse helps. if I didn't have the horse, I don't think I would be quite as content at home because it gives me something else to focus on in another project. But it was really eye-opening how content I am. And even so much that I now look at my calendar and, even looking ahead till next November, we moved that Galapagos trip till Thanksgiving. And then I was looking at teaching something else. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that in November too, because that would be away a lot for November. Maybe I can do that a different month. And I'm like, whoa, what are these thoughts? I've never had these thoughts before. Who am I?
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. That's fascinating. And, on a personal level, through some personal struggles that I had, I actually learned about myself that I am willing to do anything to avoid conflict. This is not fantastic. This is something I need to work through. Oh, hence the therapist, right? How timely that all kind of worked out. You go through situations and then this just kind of came to light for me like, wow, I'm doing everything to keep the peace and avoid conflict, but it's not productive and I know it's not helping me. How can I get past this? Well, I cannot get past it by just playing it through in my own head. When things stay in your own mind, they just get very, very muddled. They also appear larger than they actually are.
Yeah, they get bigger.
They get bigger, right? So as I learned these things, I thought, well, if I would do anything to avoid conflict, I must have some type of issue with rejection or maybe low self-esteem. Now, having known me, and your audience knows me pretty well, on the surface, you wouldn't think that at all, nor do I even feel that way. Like this is all happening at the subconscious level, but I think it's ultimately impacting business, which is why I'm doing all of this. So all of this are things that I learned last year. And there's a ton more. I just wanted to share a couple of examples. But again, if we didn't take the time to sit through and look at these lessons, how would I know what I needed to work on? Or
exactly.
Or what direction to take? Well, now that I recognize I'm avoiding conflict, I can do something about it.
Yep. I love that. And not to change the subject here, but that lacking self-esteem or feeling like you're not quite worthy. I'm with you too. I'm like, I don't have those issues, but all of us do to a certain extent.
That's right.
There is still always that little voice in the back of our head. Some of us just have it louder than others. But, I find myself doing certain things. My word of the year for 2021 is visibility, because I find it safer and easier to just dive into my computer and do work. But instead of picking up the phone, doing another Facebook Live, or getting in front of all of you amazing listeners out there. So, for those of you that are like, I'm scared to put my business out there. Yeah. Look, I'm running this business and I still have this it's easier to sit on my computer and not do anything scary or, that could get rejection today. So, that is there for, that's a common theme in all of us. And also, the number one most downloaded episode from last year, Heather?
Oh, I do
what
not.
It was for the podcast? Gaining Confidence with this woman named Heather Lahtinen.
That's fantastic. Good. I'm so glad. And you would listen to me and you would think I'm the most confident person on the planet. And the thing is, I am. This is where you have to really pay attention, because this can get really tricky. You see, I believe that I'm very confident and that I have high self-esteem and high self-worth, and I am making things happen and I feel great about the person I'm becoming. But so I'm in denial, Nicole, because if I don't admit or at least uncover. So it wasn't that I was trying to purposefully lie to myself. That wasn't it at all. I literally didn't see it. So how could I fix it? So it came to light this year through some situations and some reflection, and then getting a therapist. And now I see, okay, wow, here's something that I never in a million years would have explored or would have said I need help with, which means I would have never sought it out. But now I can improve it. And that's so empowering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we only find these things if we ask our questions. The other thing that I want to circle back to for this particular question is our fictitious, what happened in this past year, my failed marketing thing. So maybe, you did a marketing something, you did something in your business that did not come out as expected. That, of course, becomes much easier here. So what lessons did you learn? Was it maybe I didn't have messaging that shared the value for what I did as well. Maybe it was I chose to partner with, a charity that wasn't as involved as they could have been. Maybe it was I didn't promote it enough to my followers. I need to be more visible. So you can start to pull those lessons because truly, you guys, everything is happening in our favor. Even when we see something and we're like, that was a failure. It's only a failure if you refuse to learn the lessons. So this is where we start to ask ourselves those questions and take away those lessons, because guess what? If you don't learn the lesson now, you're going to have to repeat it so you learn the lesson later.
Isn't that the truth?
Do you want to learn it now or do you want to experience that again?
And I'm thinking, let's just get it out of the way. And this comes back to labeling or assigning a narrative or a story to what something means. And the truth is, the things that happen are neither good nor bad. They just happen, and then they teach us a lesson, and you can choose to look at it as good or bad. But again, that's your choice. So you are either making your life phenomenal and looking for all the lessons and growing and learning, even when it feels difficult, and challenging. It's a struggle. I'm not diminishing that. Or you can just stay in your own misery and think, everything is happening to me. And, Nicole and I both look at life as everything is happening for us, even when, like, for instance, this past year, we really struggled with our 18-year-old daughter. She's a great kid. Don't mishear me. She's just kind of got, a teenage attitude, and she's a little bit disrespectful, and she's figuring out her own life. And so it was kind of challenging for us to navigate this, but we have grown, oh my goodness, tremendously. And I believe as a result of that, we're all becoming closer as a family. But I mean, it can get ugly there for a little bit. Mm-hmm. You just have to recognize that whatever is happening, good or bad, however you label it, is temporary. Everything is, and it's going to change. So I guess enjoy it while you label it as good, but don't hate the bad or don't try to avoid it. Just lean into it, acknowledge, oh, this kind of sucks, but I know that there's most likely a huge lesson on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, that's good. Let's move on to the next one. So these next two questions kind of go together. So the first one is, what was missing from last year? Now, I find this question to be a little bit tricky based on last year being 2020, because it can be really easy to blame everything on the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are some absolute valid things that you will miss, like travel, like getting together with friends. I mean, absolutely, for sure, those were missing from last year. But can you go deeper? Can you go into something that's beyond the surface? Because guess what? You may or may not be able to travel this year. I mean, who knows, right? So what are the other things? I mean, list the things that were missing from the pandemic. Absolutely. But don't just list those. I want you to think beyond them, because the second part of that question is, what do you wish you had more of? So you could say, like for you, Nicole, you could say, what was missing? Travel. Okay. What do you wish you more had? Travel. Okay. But what else?
Done and done.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think one way for you to start to get deeper on these questions is to not look at what physically was missing from your life. So that physically was travel for me.
Yes.
But what was missing from your day-to-day emotional being? So for me, what was missing? Well, I'm going to save that one because that goes to these last two questions that we have.
Yeah.
But just finding out, I'll go there. For instance, the beginning of the year, I was really overwhelmed because before COVID, I was doing a new website. I had some team changes. I was basically felt like I took my entire business onto the floor, off the table, with an arm crashing down to the ground. And so it was super overwhelming. So for me, what was missing at that point of the year was some ease, more stability, and just free time. Well, I got a lot of free time later. So thanks, universe.
Right. You're missing margin.
If you
could have margin.
Yeah, exactly. I was really missing margin. And that is one area that I struggle with regularly because there's so many things I want to do in my business that I tend to still say yes to too many things. So, if you look at it though, in that terms of like emotionally what was missing, or with your day-to-day being what was missing, and what do you wish you had more of there. I think that's going to get you deeper in those answers than just a 3D something like travel.
Right, right. Don't take the easy way out on this one. I mean, for sure, write those things down, but I definitely want you to go deeper. Okay, and here's the thing. Maybe you can't think of it right now. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, but I don't know. I'm not sure. That's okay. Put your brain on it. Come back to it tomorrow or in a couple of days, and just give yourself some time for this reflection. I don't believe reflection happens in 5 minutes. I think it takes several hours, days, maybe even weeks. Something will pop into your mind. So that's why I recommend printing this out and physically writing these things down, keeping it handy so that you can come back to it and then review it.
You know what I do, Heather, when I have a question like this and I'm like, I know there's something to it, but I'm not sure. I do two things. Number one is I write down like what was missing from last year. I'll write it on a Post-it note and kind of put it at my computer. So I'm like seeing it throughout the day so that every time I see it, even if I don't like consciously read it, my brain is still seeing it and taking it into my subconscious mind. Still like, okay, I got to get that answer for you. Don't worry. Hey, check, Nicole, we're working on it. And then I also like to ask myself, reflect on these things kind of before I go to bed. Yep. I've gotten doing that. I've become much more intentional doing that. And Heather, I can't even tell you the number of times now I wake up in the morning and it's like, I wake up at 4 or 5, I use the bathroom and then I like go back to sleep for a couple hours. In that last little sleeping segment before I wake up and I like have to grab a pen and paper sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I just solved all the world problems while I was sleeping. These things come to me at like in that state. And it sounds crazy, but it's unbelievable. Like if you ask yourself something before you go to bed and you just tell yourself, I want to remember whatever answers come to me while I'm sleeping, you'll remember. And it might not happen that night, but you'll get your answer.
It absolutely works. I mean, I know you have told me several times we'll be talking about maybe something we're trying to figure out in business. And you'll say, don't worry, I'm going to put my brain on it tonight.
Yeah, my subconscious. I'm going to put my subconscious on it tonight.
And that's because we both truly believe and have faith in the fact that our subconscious is working beneath the surface constantly in our favor.
Yes.
So just ask it.
Yeah. There's, oh gosh, I don't want to totally mess it up, but there was a study, James Wedmore shared this with us at one of our events that we were at with him for our coaching program that we're in. And it was essentially, there were two people at a table in a crowded restaurant, back when you could do those things.
Yes.
And they're talking, they're having a conversation. And then I don't know if it was the next day or later that night, but some period of time went by and they were asked to, answer questions based on what their conversation was, like what they remember from that night. And I'm going to make this up, like remember 10% or something of it. And then they were put under hypnosis even later, which hypnosis sounds all crazy, but it's really just a deep state meditation.
Yep.
And so they were put under this deep state meditation to kind of shut off that conscious brain and access their subconscious brain. And they remembered not just every single thing they talked about, but what all the other tables were talking about, even though they didn't even know they were listening to those other tables. So that is how much information is being processed by your subconscious mind all the time. And our conscious brain is just like, holy cow, I can't handle all that. I'm filtering big time. And it's only picking little teeny tiny pieces.
I actually remember where I was sitting when he told that story. That's how much it impacted me. That story blew my mind. When he said that they remembered 100% of everything that went on in the entire restaurant that night, it was crazy to me what our subconscious brain is taking in. I mean, I think you and I both looked at each other like, wait, what? How?
Right?
So and we happened to be sitting in a room that particular day with a bunch of really amazing, high-performing entrepreneurs. And the first thing I thought was, oh man, this is awesome. Yes, I'm going to pick up, I'm going to learn all of this stuff from these people around me. And I really had such an excitement and this is going to sound contradictory. It was strange. It was like, I was super excited, but I was really peaceful at the same time because I was thinking, I've got this. I chose, you and I both made a decision to surround ourselves with really amazing people and the things that they're working on, and they're changing the world, and we're absorbing it just by physically being in their presence, whatever those conversations were. I thought that was phenomenal to me. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. So for you, Heather, real quick, because,
Yes.
but what was missing for last year, or what do you wish you had more of for you last year?
Oh gosh, let me see. I have
Putting
to.
you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I have to look at my own notes. What's funny is this is strange because it was missing, but then there was a lesson from it, and I was missing my independence. I am fiercely
Yeah.
independent, and my kids are a little bit older, so they're they don't need constant care, and they're usually in school or at work and not around, and my husband's at work, and my parents do live with us, but they have their own lives and they're doing things. So it's like I have my own life Monday through Friday,
Right.
Work days. And I was just sick to my stomach when everything shut down and I was like, I'm going to die. I don't know how I'm going to get through this, like having everybody around. Now, of course, like everyone else, we adapted and it took some time and it was painful, but we're in a rhythm at this point where you and I both have figured it out with the kids being home and schooling and such. But so while that was missing, I also learned what I'm capable of. And then again, I'm more resilient and flexible than I thought, that I can make things work, even though I cling to my independence like it is the very breath of life. The truth is I can operate in different scenarios.
Yes. I remember those conversations in March where they might close the school for 2 weeks. Little did I know, I wasn't prepared for the actual answer that my children weren't going to go back to the school building until August 2021 because we opted to full remote. I mean, they're still not back where I am anyway, even if we tried to go to school. Yeah, had you told me then, hey, by the way, your kids are going to be home from school for the next year and a half, I couldn't have handled it. So yeah, we are resilient.
I guess it's a good thing that we took it in sections. Like,
Exactly.
Like it was only going to be a couple weeks and then it was only going to be a couple months.
Everything is happening for us.
Yeah, so Nicole and I would have these conversations, quite funny to listen to us talk, because we would say, listen, I know this is happening for me. I know it is, but I'm struggling right now because my kids won't leave me alone. And I'm trying, how am I supposed to get my work done? Yeah, it was pretty funny. But I actually I've been working for the past several years, as I mentioned earlier, to design my life. So I don't have a lot of big things missing from my life, because the truth is the minute I see something missing, I fix it.
Right.
But I'm cognizant. This is about being aware. Awareness is key. I learned this from meditation. Awareness and learning, I'm not feeling good about this, so this is missing, so I need to do this. So that's like an ongoing process for me.
Absolutely. I love it. All right, let's move on.
So we're getting there, you guys. Hang in, a couple more questions.
And truly, you guys, I know this has been going on for quite some time, but we've only asked 4 questions that you need to answer. Really 3, because that one's kind of a 2-parter. There's only 2 more coming. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Okay. So this next question, again, it's kind of a 2-parter. The first one is, who were you in January of last year? And then the second part of that is, who are you now? Let me give you an example. In January of last year, I was incredibly excited, hopeful. I had a lot of big plans for my business. I was probably a little bit overly confident and a whole lot of naive, for sure, right? Because I didn't see any barriers between what I wanted to accomplish in my life and my business and achieving it. I literally did not see barriers. I just saw possibility, endless, excited, hopeful possibility. And I did not know in 3 short months that the world was going to shut down. So, and who did? I mean, of course, you can never predict something like that, but that's who I was in January of last year. But in January of this year, I'm so much stronger, aware, and confident that I can figure things out. So, right, again, what all of this did was show us that we are more resilient and we're more flexible than we think. So I almost look back at January last year, Heather, and feel sorry for her. Oh, you poor thing. You have no idea what's coming. That's so cute that you're so optimistic about everything, but it's about to get shifted. And in this past year, which what this boils down to is, it is really empowering. I feel incredibly empowered. And I would not have used that word last January, because Sorry. Let me back up and explain this. I'm a wedding photographer, and for the first several years that I photographed weddings, I don't know what happened. I just got really lucky, and I never had rain at a wedding. I always had like pretty decent weather, like really good
You
weather.
live in Pittsburgh.
I know, which is strange. I know. It's true. This is a true story. And so what started to happen was I got more confident with my photography, business was going well, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me that I had never shot in the rain, and I started to develop a pretty severe fear or anxiety about rain on Saturdays. Like unnaturally so, because and the reason is I didn't feel competent, right? It wasn't anything to do with confidence. I had never done it. So I didn't feel competent in that. Well, so of course I wanted to avoid it. I wanted to hide from it. I wanted to control the weather. I installed like 3 different weather apps on my phone. So if I looked at one of them and it called for rain on Saturday, I'd be like, oh, screw you. I'd look at another weather app as if it's going to change the weather, And I avoided it and worried until, of course, one Saturday it rained on a wedding. And guess what? I did just fine. I photographed the wedding. The photos were beautiful. And then a couple months later, I had another wedding and it rained on it. And then I was empowered because I was competent, which led to confidence. So I wouldn't have known that prior to that. So my point is, when you go through a difficult challenge, which we would all list 2020 as being challenging, you are so much stronger and better prepared for whatever's coming next.
Yes, 100%. And I love that. So I made a note here about the confidence too, that, I think so many of our listeners, based on what we said before and based on, what people are downloading and listening to, like a lot of people want to feel more confident. And, they maybe look at who they were earlier in the year and they weren't sure of themselves. They weren't sure of their craft. They weren't sure of their value as an artist. And that confidence can only be created by doing it, by practicing, by getting the mistakes out of the way, by getting those crappy pictures that we all take at the beginning and we all still take now out of the way, and not letting that, that session was really hard and these aren't my best images, define you. It was just like, oh yeah, no, that session was challenging and these aren't my best images. Okay, let's do it again. So, just always thinking about when you're feeling that way, just like you got to just put your head down and say, okay, what lesson do I have? Okay, I need to check my ISO because auto ISO, it got way too high and now these images are grainy. All right, lesson learned. Next. So that's really just the key in moving forward.
Yeah, you need the struggle is what you're saying. And a year ago, Heather, I was in denial about my confidence and my self-esteem, as I alluded to earlier. So now this year, at this point, I'm more real with myself and I'm tackling deeper, harder issues with my therapist. I've grown so much. I'm brave. I'm a better communicator. I'm more courageous. And I wasn't those things in last January. Can you think of any examples for you last January, Nicole, versus this January?
Oh, it's easy. Last January, Nicole was completely overwhelmed and thinking, oh my gosh, well, how can I do this? Am I kidding that I'm going to start a podcast too? No way. I don't have time for this. I need to just, it was just complete and total overwhelm, because you look back at last January and I basically had a team of 1, and now, to the end of January, I have a team of 4 plus my Elevate and Academy coaches. I'm still busy and I still probably could use some more margin, but I'm much more, I'm so much better now at looking at my business from this higher level of planning and being able to allow my team to take the reins to do some of these other tasks. Like, for instance, this podcast, I record these and I don't touch anything from here on out because I just don't have the time. It's just me. You guys, like, if I had to do all of this, I was actually doing this the other day. I was doing payroll and I added up, and like I would work. There's literally not enough hours in the week if I were to do all those jobs.
Right.
Because it's crazy. So that has been my biggest growth this year, is just kind of stepping more into this role of being the visionary for my business and leading my team. And, I used to manage people back in the zoo world, and, so I have some management experience, but this is a whole new set of skills and things to learn. And it's been really fun and rewarding and challenging all at the same time. And, I wouldn't change a thing.
Right. Me either. I would not change a thing. All of the good, quote, bad struggle, all of it is welcome. Okay, the final question, and by far my favorite question. In fact, if you did nothing else but answer this question or reflect on it, I think this could be life-changing. Ask yourself, what gift did 2020 give you? Ooh, good one, right?
I love that.
You have to really, and I have a million there. I mean, I'm not going to go through them all again. We've already heard so many good things came out of it for me, but this is especially important for people who really struggled to find the positive. And again, I'm not downplaying that. Your feelings are valid. Last year was crazy, but can you find the gift? I implore you to search for it.
Yeah, there's certainly one, if not several. And yeah, if you guys do nothing else, like if you're driving, you're like, I'll get to all that later. Or, you download it and you're like, I'm not going to, kind of like not really look at things too much. Please, 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 at least answer this one. But if you take the time to answer all just five questions here, guys, you're going to be the one that gets a benefit from it. By you answering this question, Heather and I, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect our day-to-day. Right. It doesn't affect our life. Doesn't affect our future, whether you answer this or not. But if you take the time to go through these 5 questions, it can significantly change your path in this next year and beyond. So I implore you to take the time to do so.
Yeah, I agree. Very well said. Thank you so much.
Of course. If you guys want to download these questions, just go to www.hairofthedogacademy.com/48, and you'll be able to find that download on the show notes page. And definitely join us next week, because we are going to be going to part 2 of our goal setting, and we're going to be talking about what we're going to plan for this upcoming year, how to plan for 2021. And when that airs, you guys, we're already going to be more than halfway through January. Time is flying. And if you don't take the time to plan, you are not going to get where you want to go, because you don't even know where you want to go. So carving out this intention, carving out this plan, carving out this path forward is absolutely critical for you to get to where you want to go.
Yep, just do it. Make it happen.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Heather, for being with us today, and we'll see all of you guys next week. Have a good one. If you are like most photographers, you may be thinking that taking gorgeous images is all you need to fill your calendar. Well, I've got some bad news. That's not the case. There are plenty of incredible artists out there that struggle to make consistent money in their business. And on the flip side, there are lots of photographers that produce average work that are killing it with full calendars and high sales. You see, successful photography businesses are just that, businesses. I'm Nicole Begley, creator of Hair of the Dog, and I believe every artist can make money doing what they truly love. So I help pet photographers maximize their potential by improving both their craft and their business. If you're ready to follow a proven path to success, join us inside Hair of the Dog Academy.